Let's see how we roll on the Wi-Fi. Another Tuesday, another show. We'll be previewing today Joe Smith Jr., the Common Man, for the WBO light heavyweight title against Callum Johnson. Joe Smith Jr. Will come into this fight 32 years old. 21 of those 27 wins be a knockout, and he only has one knockout loss, and that was to Eddie Camiro in 2010. He's on a 3-fight winning streak right now with decision wins over Jesse Hart and Maxim Vasolv, and then a TKO win over Eldir Alvarez. His other two losses to undefeated Dmitry Biov and 19-1 Sullivan Barrera, which I think he broke his nose or his jaw in that fight. He also has wins over Bernard Hopkins, Andre Farfara, and will have a half-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage going against Callum Johnson. I just seen today that Joe Smith came out and said he doesn't like. He said normally people in boxing would go after a Canelo Alvarez fight or something like that. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to prove that he is the best boxer at his weight class, and he wants to fight guys that are in his way to do that. He mentioned two people, one of them being Dmitry, I want to say Dmitry Bivol, which he already has a loss to. So Joe Smith Jr., a true boxer, a true combat sportsman. He wants to beat the best of the best and be known as a guy who fought the people in line and didn't jump to fight Jake Paul and fucking Canelo and Floyd Mayweather way out of his prime. He doesn't want to do shit like that. He wants to fight the best guys at his weight, and he wants to keep that belt for as long as he possibly can to prove he is the best at his weight class. Callum Johnson, his opponent, 36 years old. He's from the UK. 20-1 is his professional record. 14 wins by knockout. His only loss was a knockout against undefeated Arthur Beterbiev. And actually remembering now, that is the other guy Joe Smith said that he would like to go against, either Arthur Beterbiev and or Dmitry Bivol. Johnson is on a 3-fight winning streak at the moment with a TKO win over Sean Monahagan and Emil Merrick. He won the WBOG light heavyweight title in that fight with Emil Merrick, and then most recently defended that title with a decision win over Severe Amirilev. He is 100. I want to get at that he is fighting cans for the majority of his career, just like boxing normally does. They give you layup after layup after layup. Joe Smith did not go through that kind of path to get to where he's at, but I believe that Callum Johnson did, unfortunately. The combined record of his first 15 opponents, 21 professional fights. Combined record of his first 15 opponents are 100 and 289. So more than double losses his opponents had than wins. And then of his 6 last opponents, they have a combined record of 130 and 19. So his last 6 opponents, very, very skilled. One of which those 6 opponents was the loss to Beterbiev. But, still, that's 5 fights where he's actually fighting really, really good guys. So, I mean, for Joe Smith, I think Joe Smith's going to win. I'm just going to come out and say I'm a little biased. From Long Island originally. He is the Long Island common man. He still works in the union. He's a Long Island up and down guy. So I'm going to go for him. I'm going to root for him every single time he fights. But and I do think he has legitimate chances to win this fight. He's got the toughness, man. He broke his jaw against Sullivan Barrera. He kept coming out. I think they eventually stopped that fight, but still, he's got toughness. He's got long range. He's going to have a height advantage over this guy, a little bit of a reach advantage. And he's shown that he can deal with adversity in there and come back to win. I believe against Fanfara. And then in his most recent fight against Alvarez, that was a banger. Just back and forth banger. Could have went either way up until the last couple rounds where Joe Smith took over and eventually won. I think it's a no-brainer here. Joe Smith Jr. is going to win, but Callum Johnson is not somebody to sleep on, and Joe Smith needs to take him extremely seriously in order to keep his winning streak going and be able to fight Dmitry Bivol or Arthur Beterbiev in his next fight. The only other fight on this card that I noticed as notable was Jose Enrique Vivas and Abraham Nova, which is the co-main event, 126-pound co-main event, 10 rounds, 3 minutes per round, which the main event is actually 12 rounds, 3 minutes per round. Nova's coming into this fight undefeated, 20-0, 14 knockout wins, most recently winning a decision over Richard Pumick. He got the biggest wins over Avery Sparrow, 10-1, Luis Ronaldo Castillo for the NABA super featherweight, or super feather, I guess, not featherweight, title. He was 20-3 when he fought him. And then Suleiman Sigawa, who was 11-1 when he fought him. Other than that, these guys are kind of they're taking the boxing route. He's 27 years old. He's got a 3-inch height, 5.5-inch reach advantage over Jose Enrique Vivas. Vivas is 21-1. He's never been knocked out in his career. He's got 11 knockout wins. His biggest wins include John Vincent Mordale, Carlos Jackson, Rubenville for the WBO International Feather title, even though he lost that fight. So he's got 2 really big wins, and then he's got one big, he's got 3 big, huge fights in his career. He's 21-1. 3 huge fights in his career. 2 of them he won. 1 of them he lost, and that was for the WBO International Feather title, 126 pounds. I don't understand. Do they call it a featherweight or are they calling it feather? Because if there's a feather and then a featherweight, it's pretty silly, man. That's another problem I got with boxing. I don't mean to get on here. I know I'm previewing a boxing thing. Boxing fans are probably, if anybody, going to come look at this video and listen to me. I don't mean to badmouth it, but way too many divisions, way too many layups. Make it so that you have promotions. Top Rank is a promotion. De La Hoya, whatever his shit's called, Golden Boy, all that shit's a promotion. But in those promotions, you can have people who have different titles, like the fucking WWE, like the fucking SmackDown Cruiserweight title can be defended on Raw or some shit like that. Like, nah, dude, that's fucking fake shit. If you're going to be legit combat sports, man, the fucking Top Rank should have the WBO titles. All Top Rank has the WBO champions. They got a heavyweight, a light heavyweight, a fucking middleweight, a cruiserweight. Even if you want to keep all those different weights, have one promotion, have a specific title. When you have all these different titles and shit like that, it just gets confusing for me. Like, okay, so Smith won the WBO light heavyweight title in his last fight. And then it also says that Johnson won let me see if I have it written down, what it's called, WBOG light heavyweight title. So, I mean, like, I know if they're fighting for the WBO title, they're definitely fighting for Joe Smith's title. But, I mean, just why make it confusing like that? Why, I get it. UFC has, like, their featherweight champion fight their lightweight champion, and that's exciting. People watch that. Somebody's going to become a double champ. That's cool. But, like, Callum Johnson can fight Joe Smith, who lost to Sullivan Barrera, however you say his name, and then Sullivan Barrera could be fighting, people in the IBF and all the, like, he may never even run into Callum Johnson if Callum Johnson beats Joe Smith, just because, like, there's just so many different titles, there's so many different paths you can go on, and yeah, of course, I mean, the big thing in boxing is unifying all the titles, having one guy hold all the different titles, but that also takes some I don't want to say the word wrong. I want to say, like, it takes the legitimacy out of a certain weight's title, because, like, how can you say I am the light heavyweight champion of the world in boxing? How can you say I'm the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing if you're Tyson Fury or if you're any of these other guys, if you're only holding one of them? You know what I mean? If there's somebody else out there that holds a world heavyweight title, regardless if it's IBF, WBO, whatever it is, it takes away the legitimacy of that title until you win all the titles, which is fucking silly, man. If you just have a pool of fighters signed under one promotion, fight for one title, that's it. If you want to go up in weight, you go up in weight, you double champ that way. But I mean, this massive amounts of weight classes, massive amounts of titles. It's just silly, man. Boxing has turned to straight up money fights, to where they knew that to make money fights, they had to. This guy's an up and coming boxer. This guy's a title holder. How do we make this more exciting? Because nobody knows who this guy is. What do? We fight a bunch of people that suck and that shouldn't be boxing, and then we give him a fucking title, give him some whatever fucking title it is, and then when he fights him, he's got a name because he's a champion. Now he's a champion. It's a champion versus champion. It's just silly, man. I get why you do it, but I never particularly got into boxing like how I got into MMA because of it's just way harder to follow. It's 10 times harder to follow because, you know, it's like what are you really rooting for? You know what I'm saying? Like if my favorite fighter wins the UFC title, gets old, gets released from the UFC, and then he starts, you know, he goes signs with Bellator, and then I'm rooting for him now to win the Bellator title. If I'm rooting for Joe Smith Jr., which I always do, I never know what title I'm rooting for him to win. I never know what, you know, his possible end game is, what the best outcome for him would be. I have no clue because it's just there's way too many inner workings of, you know, he's got to fight this guy and he's got to fight this guy, and then if he beats this guy, he could beat this guy, and then he's got to unify them all. It's like, dude, but and then what? You know, it's just way harder to follow. I would never. That's why I could never get into boxing. I'm not going to have a pick for the co-main event. I really, to be completely honest, don't really know who either of the guys are. I just know that they are the more well-known fighters on this card, the better records on this card, and everybody else is fighting 6-round fights. There's one fight earlier in the card that's another 10-round fight, and that is Limboya Pinchuk versus Jose Mario Flores. And Pinchuk is 13-2-1, while Flores is 8-2-2. And then the rest of the fights, Johnny Turner taking on Akeem Black. Turner is 5-0. Akeem Black 6-4. I mean, layup. Rakeem Butler's 4-1. He's taking on Omar Rosario. He's 5-0. That's a good fight, competitive, good fight. Henry Cruz is 5-2. He's taking on Troy Easley, 3-0. Decent. 7 pro fights to 3 pro fights. Just decent. Kassir Goldston is taking on Philip Carmouche. Carmouche 2-2. Goldston 4-0. A little bit of a skill differential, and then you got Bruce Carrington, who is undefeated, undefeated 0-0, making his professional debut. He's going up against Rafael Azaru, who is 1-3. So I mean, to that you say, who is it a layup for? Is it a layup for the guy who has 4 professional fights and the other guy who has 0, or is it a layup to the guy who is making his professional debut and they could be looking at like, this guy's strong, he's going to be a champion one day, and the other guy who has 1 win in his 4 fights, and it's like, you know, maybe he just boxes because he likes it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he's not great at it. Maybe he's not going to ever go win a title. He's never going to have an over 500 record, but he likes to box, so he does it, you know? So, I mean, it's hard to say who's the layup there, but in those last 2 fights in particular, not the last 2, the first one and the last one, there definitely is some sort of a layup there for one of the 2 fighters. I think with the 4-0 versus 2-2 is a little bit, but then when you come down to the co-main event and the main event, these are very evenly stacked guys. 27-3 versus 20-1, 20-0 versus 21-1. I mean, very evenly stacked fights, and I look forward to that this weekend, or not this weekend, sorry, next weekend. Top Rank, Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, in upstate New York. I don't know if there's any kind of restrictions on New York right now with sports and combat sports and things like that. So that might be why they're going upstate. I don't know why they wouldn't have a Top Rank event in like a, you know, New Jersey, fucking Atlantic City, Brooklyn, Manhattan, something like that. You know what I'm saying? Or I mean, because of New York, I mean, because of Joe Smith and he's the champion, they're probably trying to make it a home fight for him. But upstate just feels weird to me if there's no if it's just random and there's no kind of restrictions or anything like that. But it is what it is. Short video today, guys. I know. We'll be back next week to preview another fight that is happening on that same day as the Joe Smith fight, not this Saturday, but next. And that is UFC Fight Night 200. Yeah, that is right. We are going back to calling them Fight Nights. instead of UFC Vegas. I think that got kind of played out. It was cool because like they were going from Vegas to Abu Dhabi, when the lockdown was happening and there was no fans and things like that. But now they're having people come into the stands, and it's just changed a lot. I'm going to go back to calling them fight nights. It's going to be main evented by Giga Chikadze and Calvin Kattar. Shaping up to be a very good card. I don't want to talk about it just yet because I just seen today 2 of the fights I've already made notes about. One of them is getting moved to 270. One of them has a new opponent already. So next Tuesday, 4 or 5 days before the fight, it gives me a little bit more, security on what I'm talking about when I preview the fight. So next Tuesday, we'll see you guys back here to preview the UFC. Back, whole month off. Glad to be back. Having withdrawals, Dana. Appreciate it, man. See you next Tuesday.